What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe back here with my Week 3 running back rankings. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Post my rankings every single week to give you guys up to date with those start-sit decisions, as well as waiver wire content, fantasy football takeaways, and buy lows and sell highs to make sure you guys are capitalizing on the market, the right opportunities, all the information you need to beat your friends and family in fantasy football. So hit that subscribe button if you want to win those fantasy football championships, and let's hop into this. Before I do, actually, though, hit that like button, hit the comments up. I will respond to all comments, any start sits you guys have, cross positional, whatever it is. Hit me up in the comment section down below. It really helps out the algorithm. I appreciate it. Now let's talk Week 3 running back rankings. These are half-point PPR. At number 1, I've got Christian McCaffrey against the Giants. His workload is just amazing, and he's a supreme talent. 2, Tony Pollard, great matchup for him against Arizona. His usage so far this year has been awesome. Bijan Robinson, I've been fine with his fantasy usage. I think the only thing you could really criticize is maybe hope for a little bit more goal line, but he had a carry last week. I think he gets a touchdown this week against Detroit. 4, Austin Ekeler against Minnesota. This is assuming Ekeler plays. Obviously, to monitor that situation, but if Ekeler's playing, you're playing him. Pretty simple. Travis Etienne against Houston. Good matchup for him. I think he is going to thrive for fantasy football. Josh Jacobs plays Pittsburgh. I think this might be the game he finally gets it right. Just getting a ton of volume, and this is a solid matchup for him on the ground. 7, Derrick Henry against Cleveland. Cleveland's defense has looked good, but with the type of volume Derrick Henry gets, you're still just going to roll him out there. 8, Joe Mixon against the Rams. I think they might lean on him a little bit more with the Joe Burrow situation currently, and I think he might get more checkdowns as well from Joe, not wanting to hang on the ball too long with Aaron Donald breathing down his throat. Number 9, Kenneth Walker against Carolina. He's been utilized. I think he's the lead back. Good matchup for him. I think he'll be good. Number 10, Kyren Williams against Cincinnati. Speaking of excellent usage, he is the guy. Had over 70 snaps last week. I want to say it was 76, but I'm not 100% sure on the number off the top of my head. But ton of snaps for running back. 11, Jerome Ford against Tennessee. I think Jerome Ford is going to be the guy in Cleveland. I'm not worried about Kareem Hunt, especially this week against Tennessee. You're starting up Jerome Ford. Even in a tough matchup, they've got a great offensive line that should help neutralize just about any type of matchup like that on the ground. 12, Jahmyr Gibbs with David Montgomery down, and Jahmyr Gibbs played more snaps last week than he did week 1. I expect that trend to continue. Decent matchup for him against Atlanta. They do like to slow the game down. Their pace of possession, or the amount of the game that Atlanta possesses the ball, is quite a bit with their run game, but I think Gibbs will be used a little bit more on the ground and continue to be used in the passing game. 13, Miles Sanders, tons of workload for him so far. This is a good matchup for him against Seattle. Look for him to get back on track. Isaiah Pacheco, good matchup for him against Chicago. I think he punches in 1 or 2 touchdowns here. 15, Aaron Jones against New Orleans. This is, of course, if Aaron Jones plays. Did not practice on Wednesday. Green Bay notoriously conservative with their training department, so monitor that situation. But if he plays, I think you can throw him in there even in a tough matchup against New Orleans because of the contributions he makes through the passing game. 16, Ramondre Stevenson. Speaking of contributions to the passing game, even a tough matchup against the Jets, he'll be used enough, and he is a good player. Raheem Mostert against Denver, I'm playing him. He looked excellent last week in a tough matchup against New England, and he is the guy there. 18, James Cook against Washington. Slightly tougher matchup for him on the ground, but he's being used on the passing game as well. Not a ton. He won't be the goal line guy, but he can score from outside the 20 because he's an explosive player. Brian Robinson Jr. plays Buffalo. His usage as well has been phenomenal. Tough matchup, but otherwise I think he'd be higher. Alexander Madison, good matchup for him. You really look for him to get it right here. If you're looking to buy Madison, now might be the time just before this bad matchup. I don't think I would be buying Madison personally, but I do think you can play him as a pretty strong play in this game against the Chargers and their run defense. 21, we got Dameon Pierce against Jacksonville. Pierce, another guy, they're going to give him the rock. I think he could finally get right in this game. 22, Breece Hall against New England. I think he'll get the ball more after complaining last week. New England's a tough matchup, but he's an explosive player. 23, we have Zach Moss. He's facing Baltimore, but he was on the field for 98% of their snaps last week. You can play Zach Moss every week until JT is back. 24, DeAndre Swift. I think he will factor into the passing game in this one and be utilized. It's just so good, and got the long week while playing on Thursday night last week. 25, James Conner plays Dallas. Not a great matchup, but he is the guy there. 26, Tyler Algier. Still getting utilized on the ground, even with Bijan getting a ton of work. And he might still hold on that goal line role, so you can play him against Detroit. 27, Gus Edwards. I think he has a good chance of punching a touchdown in this one against Indy. 28, Javonte Williams against Miami. Hasn't looked good, but this is a good matchup for him. Jaylen Warren against Las Vegas. Going to talk about Najee in a little bit. Just think Jaylen Warren looks noticeably better. Think he'll do something this week. 30, Dalvin Cook against New England. It's a tough matchup. I think Brees will be more involved, so that's why he's a little farther down. Kendra Miller, I think he'll get the start this week. Jamal Williams likely doesn't play. Kendra, I think, is going to suit up. If he does, I think he'll be the starter for this matchup against Green Bay, and you can play him. Still out there in some waiver wire, so add Kendra Miller if you can. Rashad White, really like Kendra Miller's tape as well when he was in college, so keep an eye on him. He's a third-round draft pick, very young. Rashad White, tough matchup for him, but he has been heavily utilized so far this year. 33, Kenneth Gainwell, Tampa Bay. I still think he will be involved. Just think that Swift in a tough matchup on the ground might have the better day for fantasy. 34, Khalil Herbert against Kansas City. Still think Khalil Herbert is worth an ad, especially with Devontae Foreman, or not worth an ad, worth a play in a flex or something like that if you need to. Because they have just two backs with him and Roschon, with Deontay Foreman inactive last week. 35, Craig Reynolds. I do think he'll get some of that David Montgomery role this week. Get a 10 to 15 carries, something like that against Atlanta, so you can play him. Najee Harris just hasn't looked good. I think Jaylen Warren will just continue to get more and more work. You can play him. This is a good matchup. If you drafted Najee, you probably are playing him, but if you have somebody, let's say you got a Mostert or from waivers or something like that, or Jerome Ford maybe, I'd be plugging them in ahead of Najee for sure and trying to move Najee if he has a good week this week. All right, if you guys made it to this point in the video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and if you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section down below. I'll respond as always. This has been Fantasy Joe. Thank you guys for watching.